evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to Beer Blather at number 227. Sit back, enjoy. Last week, we uh, finished our description of the show with "This is going to be a fun campaign." And indeed, this is going to be a fun campaign. If President Vegetable wasn't fun enough to watch before blowing up in the debate, now it has definitely become a spectator sport. As some close ranks around the comatose potato, others run for cover pretending his mental decline is news to them. Sure, the guy who ran without a campaign because he could not risk exposure to real people, remember the basements? The guy who answered prearranged questions in press conference parodies when he was not pretending to be a ripe fruit on air stairs or stages. That guy. Oh my God! Maybe too senile and feeble-minded. No shit, Sherlock. This singular exposure has even encouraged Kakala to come forward to claim her DEI privileges, lest someone think of an alternative to her ungracious self. Alas, blowing her away to the top is no longer feasible. Oh well, worry not. Carry on and enjoy the show. This is going to be more entertaining by the second. And watch those drop boxes, like the ones in Wisconsin. The dead love voting through them. In November, make sure you put the blathering idiots out. And this is All Montez Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from, yes, Florida, my golden cage. And right next to me, this guy here, Thomas Wichter, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers and so many more interesting stuff, who has just survived a few days of relentless bombardment, both with rockets and bad music from his lovely neighbors, probably to the south, even though they may be to his east. And we are doing this, of course, in our channel in Odyssey, and simultaneously in 3 timelines in Twitter. That would be mine, Quadverum's, and his. The one that some idiots say it's not his. Well, it is his. They can come over here and ask him. And finally, you boob, where we haven't lost the practice of starting with a teaser and withdrawing within a half an hour or so, because frankly we can't stand you boob. And having said all of this crap, oh yes, no, I forgot. We're gonna be putting signs every now and then to remind you to click on support, which you can do by clicking on support here in Odyssey and making a donation to the channel, or clicking the $ and making a donation with a comment, or clicking on join and, God forbid, become members of this channel and support us all 30 days. It's about 25 cents a day. Even in Biden's economy, that is not such a big favor to ask. And if you don't like any of those, you can always go to quadverum.com/support us and drop a buck or two to help SQV and this channel. And now, having said all of that, and shamelessly ask for your moolah up front, Thomas, how's life this side of the 4th of July?
This was the worst one ever. These people on July the 3rd had a live band that began at 5 and went on till 1 in the morning, and then they played tape music till 2 in the morning, and they fired off the largest explosives beginning around 8 and going all the way to 2 in the morning. And then they did it all over again on July the 4th. And even today, it's the 6th. they're still shooting off occasional fireworks, all explosives. And, these are, I'm not going to get into a dispute with my neighbors, because anybody who thinks that it's okay to do this isn't going to be, they're not going to go, oh, holy shit, we had no idea that this would be bothering people. We're sorry, we'll never do it again. They're not going to do that. And I hate confrontation, but I do want to say that when all of that was going on, I had a lot of thoughts of total mayhem in my head. Not real thoughts, just idle imagery. And I read something today that encouraged me, because maybe next year these people will do it. Two different men, one was 39, one was 41, blew their own heads off by putting mortars on top of their heads and setting them off. Two different men in two different places in the country, and completely different backgrounds. And the only thing they both had in common was that they were both drunk. So that's a new one on me. I had no idea that someone would think they would survive, because the mortars, in order to get up in the air, they're fired off with a large explosive. So if you put it on,
like any rocket, by the way,
like any rocket, and okay, rockets, they take off. A mortar, if you've ever seen video of soldiers firing off mortar rounds from what's called a mortar tube, they drop it in and then they move as far away from it as they can without, the guy crouched at the mortar, adjusting the elevation and everything. He crouches down as far as he can, and the guy dropping the mortar, he also bends double, because just firing off the round is a deadly explosion. So this guy basically did this. He basically put a mortar round on his head. Two of them, two different men. So we're definitely in a realm of outrageously, what's the best term, since we're still on YouTube, outrageously thoughtless behavior.
That was elegant. That was elegant.
Yeah. This is such a weird time. And okay, you and I spoke last night. I asked you what you thought if Biden would drop out. And I realized that he's the only one who can make that decision. There's no way to remove him, because the Democratic Party is basically split on whether he should stay or go. And, all the Democrats calling for him to leave, they're getting all the press. But there are just as many who are demanding that he stay. So,
including every Democratic governor,
exactly,
senators, and everybody who counts in the DNC.
Right. So even if Kamala were to invoke the 25th Amendment, it wouldn't pass.
She wouldn't get the votes.
It wouldn't get the votes, because all the Republicans would vote to keep him.
Shit, I would even try to sneak into the meeting so I could vote to keep him.
This is so bizarre, but I want to tell everybody that both my parents died in 2013. They were both diagnosed with cancer on the same day. And my father died in he died in about 6 weeks. And my mother died in October of that year. Neither of them ever accepted that they had stage 4 metastasized cancer. They denied it all the way up to their deaths. So if Biden is in a state of total denial, he can actually carry that denial all the way to his deathbed and insisting all the way to the end.
His
I mean,
corpse is going to deny it. I think he's dead. No, I'm not.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I'm getting better.
It's
I mean,
like a Monty Python thing.
both of my parents had attended the Catholic Church regularly all their lives. Near the end of his life, my father began attending daily, going to Mass daily. They both donated, I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands of dollars to the church. And at the end, there was never a point when they said, okay, my brother was with my mother the night before she went into her final coma. And she did say, I'm dying. And he said, yes, you are. But then she took it back and demanded that my father, before my father had to go in the hospice, we sat at this table where I'm sitting now. And he told me about all his plans to rebuild the garage and all this stuff when he recovered. And I didn't say anything. I just listened. And
what can you say?
He was in a state of, both of them entered a state of it was a kind of frenzy. And they became very agitated. And that's the state that Biden is in now, where he's taking credit for things that he had nothing to do with.
Well, but that he was doing that when he was 20.
Well, he's using this as evidence of his fitness to remain president. And they gave that interview. Now, remember, that was a recorded interview, edited all to hell to make him look as good as he possibly could. And look at the end result. Can you imagine the raw footage from that interview with George Stephanopoulos? I mean, this is a very dangerous.
You mean the same Stephanopoulos who was calling reporters in 1992 to tell them that they were going to have hell to pay if they published that shit about Jennifer Flowers?
Oh, of course, that guy.
I mean, he's a heat band for crying out. What the fuck? A journalist. That moron who gave us Obama over in Illinois was telling us how humane he was. He wasn't humane. He was a slobbering fucking asshole trying to float Biden out of the sea of shit in which he sunk himself.
Well, see, what goes with the denial, okay, Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks is having a it's a pretty thorough come to Jesus moment where she's having to reevaluate everything she believed. But what's really interesting about this is Anna Kasparian and then all the big Hollywood donors, okay, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who has been in Hollywood since the dawn of time, he's on the Biden re-election campaign, and he reassured all the donors that Biden was fine, and now they're furious at him because they saw the debate and the interview. Don't blame Katzenberg, blame yourself. And Anna Kasparian said the same thing. She said that she was misled by the press.
No, but she wasn't.
No. I mean,
like bastards that they are. The only people who are now kind of. By the way, we seem to be having a little bit of a problem with the Odyssey feed. It's about to get okay, but folks, I can see in the chat, not one or two, but many are having problems with reboots and things like that. So keep resetting, guys, and it's gonna get fixed by itself. There's nothing we can do about it. So anyway, they're still listening to us, And Emery says Kasparian got the left mad at her, and she doesn't like the threats and mowing she thought other people deserved. Of course, that's the way they always are. But
Yeah.
in any case, these people, there are in the press those who are circling the wagons to defend the potato, and
Mhm.
those who say, fuck it, if I'm going to sink with the ship, I'm not the captain of the Titanic.
Yeah.
Uh,
And saying, "Oh, they hid his senility from us." No, they all knew it. Everybody knew this.
yeah,
All they had to do was watch video. I saw a video
come on.
that I've never seen before, where he was being interviewed, and the guy said, what does Dr. Biden think about blah blah blah," and his eyes started to close. He started to lean forward, and the interviewer said, "What? Wait, oh." And then he sort of, with his eyes closed, he said, "Dr. Biden," and he rebooted, and that was out there. So
Come on. When he was campaigning, oh, wait a second. He wasn't fucking campaigning. He
no,
was locked in a basement. They showed pictures of him with maybe a dozen people sitting in circles, remember? Because they had to keep distance, all 12 of them. And they weren't showing him, and we all knew the only reason he was not having any interaction with the public is that because he was incapable of it. And then he got to the White House, and they built that Oval Office in a basement of the Treasury building,
mhm.
so that they could film and refilm and get the shit right until they could get 5 seconds out of him that he didn't look brain dead, so that they could show that as if he was in the Oval Office, and everybody knew this.
Well, he would give a 12-second whatever announcement, and it would have 9 edits in 12 seconds.
Yes,
So there isn't a person on earth who who has seen. Okay, these are all people like Anna Kasparian is in the news business herself, or at least the commentary business. She has no excuses. All these
zero.
yeah, these donors who are angry at Jeffrey Katzenberg. This is really funny.
Why?
I'll just repeat what I've said many times. I didn't know anything about Donald Trump except that he was a famous rich guy. And when he joined the race, I thought, oh, that's interesting. It'll make it entertaining. And it was only after the second Republican debate that I started taking him seriously. And then I did all my own research. I didn't go through the New York Times. I did actually read a New York Times piece. It was in New York Times Magazine, published in 1984, and that really opened my eyes. But basically, I watched Trump himself, everything he'd written. I read his books, and him giving presentations at a podium. I basically, except for the New York Times piece, I didn't read anything that the press had put out. I went right to the source, which is Donald Trump himself. And when I did all my own research, I was absolutely convinced he'd be the best president we ever had, and he would win the first election. So these people, especially the ones in the media, they have no excuses. Hollywood moguls have no excuses. At the very least, they could get one of their minions to give them a bullet point synopsis of what's going on. But they're all blaming Katzenberg lied to us. So what? That's still your fault.
Let me put it this way. Every politician lies.
Yeah.
Every campaign, anything, spokesperson, stand-in, onlooker, they all lie. It's part of the game. Anybody who ever told it, even Trump on occasion, I'm not going to be specific, but will at least embellish, because if you tell the truth, not even your mother will vote for you because we are that stupid. You have to paint a rosy picture. You can't say, vote for me, and we're gonna go through 3 years of hell until we right the ship. Bullshit. It's not gonna happen. That they now claim. Oh my God. These people who were having us ask only pre-approved questions in a predetermined order were lying to us when they told us that the guy was lucid? No shit. Really?
Well, Biden called into a radio show. It was a big surprise. And that was the interview where he said he was a black woman. That radio host just revealed that this was all planned, this was all scripted, and they'd given her the questions beforehand and said, you will ask these questions and these questions only. And he still screwed it up.
Of course, because he probably read one of somebody else's part. I don't think he could do a proof in a camera without fucking it up.
No, I mean,
and all the thing around him. You know what really offended me in the debate?
but
Oh, Joe, you were so good. You answered all the questions.
mhm.
God, we're being governed by imbeciles.
Yeah, and he was thinking, you're a nice lady. Who are you?
Do you have a sister? No, actually, do you have a daughter?
Okay, did you see the video where he completely passed over a young?
Black woman?
Yeah, see, there was
Disgusting.
a little tiny stage of, I don't know, 30 people,
Yeah.
and before everything got started, she was sitting in the back, and they made her come sit up front. So there'd be all these black.
They needed the token black woman up front.
Right. And previously, I don't know if it was at the same event, Biden was shaking hands with a young black man, and he was holding the guy's right hand, and he started rubbing the guy's forearm with his other hand. He was standing right in the guy's.
Yes, I saw that one.
Rubbing his hand. And so obviously somebody said, you can't do that anymore. So he just passed over the young black woman. What's happening and what's going to keep happening is Biden, because he's a narcissist, he thinks he knows best. He's going to keep going off script. He's going to tell stories that he's told a billion times and doesn't remember that he's told them a billion times. And he's going to get lost in the middle of them, and then he's not going to know. He's not going to have any idea what he's saying, and then he's just going to go, well, anyway, and everyone will be kind of clearing their throats. Okay, so I mean, this is a shambles, and it's everything. Did you see the two former Democrats who are now voting for Trump? And one of them was asked, do you think Biden will drop out? And he said, I don't care if he stays or drops out. He's a senile old liar, and he's exactly the candidate the Democrats deserve. And I thought that was a great way to put it.
I would say so. He's always been like this. I've been saying this now for 4.5 years. What we attribute to senility is a personality trait.
Yeah.
He's always been the same asshole. He's always been disconnected from the world. He's always been a racist, a child molester. People ought to ask Tara Reid what it is like being a woman near him, because the cover-up is really fantastic. For much less, they got rid of even Al Franken. But they give this senile asshole a pass. And probably it's because he's got half of them bought.
Well, he's also, okay, I'm absolutely positive that Jill has dirt on everybody. And Jill is obsessed with being first lady. She gave a terrible interview to Vogue where she said, there's nothing like riding in a limousine.
By the way, what the fuck was that What the Bologna whore doing on the cover of Vogue?
Well, I don't know, but she said there's nothing like riding in a limousine and having the police stop everybody else so you could go by. Now that's power. And it's like, you actually said that out loud.
Yeah.
You actually said that in an interview, and you think it's going to go over like well with the average American.
Because we all want power. We all want power. You see, you and I are envious of the Bois de Boulogne whore because we would love to be in that limo. Actually, I've been in limos like that and I don't fucking like it. I'd
I
rather take the subway.
I was going to interview a guy, and he offered to send me a limo, and I said, "I'll find my own way, thanks." And he was shocked, but I just, I didn't want to be that connected to him. Um, so I found my own way, and it was, if I'd been in a limo, I just would have felt like an idiot. I would have wanted to sit up front with the driver and interview him, you know. But
Why not? Why not? But that's the thing, It's these little people, and I say that in a Gulliver Travels sense. These little people, these tiny little fuckers with tiny little minds, are easily corrupted by, say, the ability to travel in a limo and stopping everybody else.
yeah,
It makes their day. If they had a half a brain, it wouldn't matter.
think about that. You're not worried. And if I were president of this country, my biggest fear would be that I would misuse my power, and that would have repercussions and ramifications that I couldn't even comprehend. Um, not the Bidens. They feel absolutely entitled to it, and they're currently apparently fighting tooth and nail to maintain it.
Well, there are reasons for that. Remember Solindra?
Yes.
Solindra was kind of like child's game.
Hmm.
Let me see if I have something here to show you. Oh, yes. Yeah, found it. Fortunately, I did have it with us. This I can also show even though we're still in YouTube. Look at this, baby. Hold on, I need to. There you are. Look at this, baby. This is an article on Forbes. Biden's 500 million bankrupt electric car company selling cars at 80% off. It's our fund that's in the deal, Hunter replied, because, if it is my fund, it isn't me. Bullshit. The thing is that the Bidens got this company millions of dollars in tax credits.
Of
It's
course.
called Fisher Karma.
Never heard it.
And an electric luxury vehicle and a social statement backed by $520 million loan to the Europeans behind it. Now, remember that we gave $500 million to Solindra, and the American taxpayer ended up footing the bill for this. And now we give $529 million for a luxury electric car manufacturer that's going bankrupt.
Hmm.
359 of those 529 million were to revive an old GM plant in Delaware. That's, works for Delaware's. You know who else was backing this shit? Al Gore.
Hmm.
Al fucking Gore. So, do you have any idea how many of these companies that the U.S. has supported? By the way, these people are going bankrupt. They're in Chapter 11, and they're selling their remaining cars at 14 grand each. I don't know who the fuck is paying that, but it doesn't matter. There's another little business for you. 3,200 units left. Do you have any idea how many shady businesses like this these people have?
We'll find out after Trump is in there. Um, some corruptoid has written a book claiming that the Supreme Court has paved the way for Trump to declare himself emperor for life and cancel elections and all that. And he was being interviewed by some raving spittle spewer on CNN or MSNBC. And I'm hearing this everywhere, and it's very gratifying. All these people watching these videos are commenting that the Democrats are afraid that Trump will do to them what they're doing to him. And this guy, he was a young black man, he said, there is no chance in the world that Trump is going to do to them what they're doing to him, because Trump believes in the rule of law and not the rule.
He would have done it to Hillary.
Well, exactly. And what Trump is going to do is he's going to expose everything and sort of let the public see. And, you know, I mean, Biden's not going to jail. Hunter's, I didn't even know. I mean,
Hunter might, but the wheels have been turning since 2019.
Yeah, and I don't care. I mean, Hunter's a catastrophe. I mean, you know.
If he doesn't go to jail, he's going to die of an overdose anyway.
Oh, and also, all the money in the world isn't going to cure what ails him.
No.
So,
no. He's a classic molested child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. He's apparently Daddy wasn't just taking showers with Ashley.
No, I mean, there's a series of horrendous black and white photos that were on, I don't know, Vanity Fair or something. And it's Hunter and Biden embracing like lovers. And there's this ghastly one where Hunter's looking at the camera with this expression of utter desolation. And Joe has his face buried in his son's neck, as if he's nibbling on his son's neck. And
probably is.
Their bodies are pressed together and they've got their arms around each other. And it is the most horrifying image. It's in black and white. And just Hunter has got the 1,000-yard stare of a man with no hope whatsoever.
Yeah. Deb says she has those pictures and can post them in SQV. Please do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a sight. And see, okay, I hear this all the time. People deal with that issue differently. Yes. But all of the Biden children are still intertwined with their father, despite what he did to them. And they defend him. It's remarkable.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Did you see the behavior of Ashley at the balcony of the White House on the 4th of July?
No. What does she do?
She was having like an epileptic attack behind Biden, and then she would like sneak under his arms and make signs to the press below. Very weird behavior.
Well, she's another one. I mean, I saw a movie last night that was made in 2018, and it was considered this stunning acting debut and all of that. It was about a totally repressed young woman on the British Isle of Jersey, whose mother was this abusive, not physically abusive, just verbally. And so this 20-something-year-old, and she's got a successful, beautiful sister who keeps stealing the spotlight. And so she ends up getting romantically involved with a serial killer. And she's doing it basically, at one point she's being interviewed by a cop, a female cop. And the cop, when she's not cooperating, the cop turns off her tape recorder and she says, "You weren't popular in school, were you?" And the girl's like, ugh. And the cop says, Oh, no, the girl says, I was bullied. And the cop says, so was I. So were a lot of people. But we're not doing what you're doing right now. Then she lunges forward and grabs the woman by the wrists and she says, are you dating this guy as a form of revenge against the world? Is that what this is? And that's the thing there. It's terrible to have to go through what the Biden children went through, but there is a way out. You're not going to be 100% ever, but you can still find a way out. You don't have to date serial killers. You don't have to stay in daddy's orbit. And okay, remember Woody Allen's daughter came out and said he molested her, and everybody said, how brave. Well, she's back curled in the fetal position because she was expecting some great healing by doing that, and nothing happened. Nothing of the sort happened. So whatever you're going to do, you have to do it internally. You're never going to get it from the outside. And I don't know. It's very strange to see these people behaving like wind-up clockwork toys. They're it's only the outliers that occasionally break the pattern and don't fall into the same traps that all these other people seem to. And that being said, this doesn't excuse the behavior of the Biden children. If they're involved in illegality, they need to be punished.
They need to be punished, and we're talking illegality that runs the gamut through misdemeanors and felonies of all kinds, from shoplifting to gun violations. By the way, this whole thing about the child with the whore,
The what?
with the whore.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like I cannot empathize with father, mother, grandfather, or any of them because all of them are a shit show, including the child's mother.
Yeah, wasn't she a stripper or something?
Yeah. Yeah, she was a stripper. She fucked him for money. She got knocked up. What does she want, really?
Yeah.
To be embraced and brought into the White House as the prodigal child? Oh, shut the fuck up.
Well, I mean, if she's a stripper, she's got massive psychological issues and emotional
To begin with.
begin with. So she should never have had a child, much less with Hunter Biden. It's a disaster, and the kid's a goner. The kid is a goner. That's all there is to it. And you know, if we
can you imagine the psychological salad that poor baby is going to have 10 years from now?
well, this is the thing. It's like the singer Kurt Cobain's daughter. They named her Frances Bean after Frances Farmer, who was a famous crazy lady who was an actress. And Frances Bean is a catastrophe. She's just a disaster. Her mother is Courtney Love, and her father was Kurt Cobain. Courtney is off in some kind of drug Valhalla, and Kurt blew his own head off at 27. So Frances never had a chance. Those Courtney and Kurt should never have had a child. I don't know. I mean, human frailty is something that there's no end to it. And what we're seeing with Biden and Jill is human frailty at its most outrageously epic.
I was going to say at the most grotesque.
Grotesque and epic.
Yes.
We're going to drag this country down with us if we have to. It's like, well,
Yeah,
not
fortunately, dragging this country down is not such an easy proposition.
exactly.
By the way, you did say, so I feel authorized to reciprocate, what you would do if you had the power in this country and the fear that you might overdo it.
Mm-hmm.
My only fear, if I had the power, is that I wouldn't close enough agencies.
Well, yeah. and that's going to happen. I think Trump is going to go in there, and I think his second term isn't going to look like his first term in the slightest, um, because he tried to get along, and look what they did to him. So,
I think he learned that lesson. I think that by seeing how he behaves and what he says in a number of circumstances, including the fact that he just went on a campaign strike at just the right moment.
mhm.
If Biden is self-destroying, do not distract the morons. Let them enjoy the self-destruction of Biden. Uh, 4 years ago, he would have come up with some kind of tweet or event or something and take everybody's attention out of Biden and onto himself. Right now, he's playing golf and laughing his ass off. He's matured as a politician.
Well, okay, we have to understand that no human being in the history of the planet underwent the experienced the crucible that Trump did, of the entire global press united against him,
Yeah.
his own administration united against him, the outrageous lies told by the Congress of the United States, and lies that they followed through by impeaching him twice, and coming up with the Russian collusion hoax, and I mean, just it's endless. And a normal man would have broken a long time ago and walked away. Not Trump. Not Trump. He's superhuman that way, and you know, God bless him, because I saw some poor conservative guy talking today about, I don't know, some legislation that snuck in something about the Selective Service, and he called it the draft. And then he said that this explains why, and this whatever was in this legislation said that all males of a certain age, citizen or non-citizen, will be subject to selective service. Then he said this explains all the military age males coming in through the border illegally,
Oh, give me a fucking break.
because the Democrats are planning for World War III.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, buddy,
In New Jersey, World War III is going to take place in New Jersey.
who are we going to fight in World War III? Who are we going to fight?
Listen, the thing with the Selective Service, I remember when Ronald Reagan came out with the Selective Service in 1981. And I was at NYU, and everybody and their mothers were screaming bloody fucking murder because Reagan wanted to reinstate the draft. And we're all gonna go back to Vietnam or some shit like that. Of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
of course, the Selective Service is not a draft,
There is no
but
draft.
it is. It's a compilation of information that may make a draft easier up to a point because all of that information we already have. But to have a pretty good idea of where the fighting age men in this country are, uh, it's not terribly bad. I think it's redundant, to tell you the truth.
Well, of
Uh,
course.
I think that through the IRS, through Social Security, through a number of other databases, we already know how many wrinkles there are in everybody's asshole. So I do see it as redundant. However, what the hell? And I tried. It turns out that I was rejected by the Selective Service because I was born 6 months too early.
Yeah, I was rejected for health reasons.
No, mine it's simple. You had to register for the Selective Service if you were born after December 31st, 1959. I was born 6 months too early.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to comply. And therefore, if the law doesn't say they have to keep your data, they don't. Now,
Uh-huh.
what happened recently is that it was proposed, I believe, it hasn't even been approved, that the Selective Service not only list American males, but females as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, this is terrible. They're gonna send women to combat. No, they're not. No, they're not. And if if we're ever under such dire circumstances in this country that we need a draft, why the fuck should women be exempt?
Okay, here's a point. All these people, all these conservatives, they have this idea that the draft selective service means everybody's going into the infantry. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And to the front line,
right.
to the trenches.
In World War II, okay, there were 16 million Americans who served in the armed forces in World War II.
Yep.
Take a wild guess how many the percentage were infantry.
Oh, 1%?
14.
14. I thought it was even less than that.
Okay, you're close because 14% in the infantry. If you're in the infantry, the vast majority of those people are in the support services.
Right. 10% went to the front of that.
Exactly.
14%.
So
1.4% that went up there. I know.
let's follow this fantasy, and let's say that the Democrats are planning for World War III with Venezuela. So they implement a draft, and we all go into the armed forces. 86% of you are not going to be in the infantry, so that means you're not going to be carrying a rifle. If you end up in the infantry, probably 90% of you are going to be in the support services.
I don't know how many million women were under the flag in World War II.
Let's see. World War II percentage of women.
Because they were in every kind of service, from nursing to administrative, from all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
All kinds of support services.
Yeah. I mean, they did everything except for actually fight.
Yes.
So they ferried aircraft. Holy shit. 200,000.
That's it? I thought it was way more than that.
16 million were in the armed forces and 200,000 were women. So
yeah, I really thought it was more than that. I just went to Arlington Cemetery for the interment of the mother of one of our quads.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
and she essentially worked as a secretary.
Yeah.
Apparently, she was very good at typing. But I thought that if you included her it was going to be a way more than 200,000.
Okay, let's see. Okay, here's another. This is December 7th, 2023. This says 350,000 American women joined the armed forces. So it's got to be, here's 310,000. So nobody knows. Let's say it's 400,000.
It all depends on how you count them anyway.
Exactly. And see, okay, a lot of the women were in like they were called, auxiliary branches and
which of course wouldn't be counted by these people, but I think
yeah.
But in the auxiliary branches they were in.
No, I mean, okay, there were nurses. Nurses were at the front lines, and they were women, and okay, there we go. That's our answer. Those were in the Red Cross or something, so they would be wearing uniforms and everything, but they wouldn't be counted as being in the combat arms. So yeah, there were let's see.
No,
Okay,
I remember doing some research on the subject a long time ago, and it was what I
three
found is that 2 million women were uh, under military authority one way or the other, including working at Chrysler or GM making
okay,
tanks.
if you do that, hold on. Um, 6 million in wartime factories, 3 million in the Red Cross, and 350,000 in the actual armed forces. So there you are.
There you are.
Yeah.
So it's and it's something. And today, of course, it's a different fucking world. Today, the crown princess of Jordan can shoot down Iranian missiles attacking Israel. Uh, you see those wonderful female soldiers in the IDF who are demonstrated to anybody with eyes that women can successfully uh, be in the front lines.
Well, on October 7th, there was an all-woman unit. They were tankers, I believe, and they served as infantry, hunting down and killing the
Yeah.
Hamas who were in Israel.
Yes.
And you know, my guess, okay, the Israelis are really smart. They're not telling us
Mm.
who's where and what they're doing.
Of course not.
So
Well, if they tell us, Hamas finds out.
yeah, and
They tell us after the fact. They
but
were here.
okay, there were women who served as intelligence agents in the operation. What is it? The OSS, which is a precursor of the CIA.
Yes.
And they were dropped into Europe. They were parachuted into Europe, and they passed as French women or whatever the heck. A lot of them were French, for example.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, it was millions.
A few were German.
And okay, this whole notion. I mean, it's so stupid. It's just so brainless. World War III. It's like these are people who still think Russia poses a threat. These are
Oh
people who
my God.
China poses a threat. Um,
At what time of the day? Because one moment they're telling you that Russia poses a threat, and the next they're telling you that Ukraine is kicking their ass.
well,
How can Russia be a threat
this
if the
is
Ukrainians kick their ass?
this is where critical thinking skills come in. You look at tons of reports, and then you come to your own conclusion. You don't listen to Jeremy so and so, who's a self-proclaimed expert on whatever, and he's making these sweeping proclamations about what's going to happen and everything. Before Russia invaded, everyone was wrong about what was going to happen. After Russia invaded, everyone was wrong about.
Except you and I, because we called it before the invasion.
Yeah, and I knew that the Russians couldn't hold Ukraine, much less defeat Ukraine. I see, as you point out a lot, the Ukrainians had been fighting the Russians since 2014,
Yeah.
and they improved a hell of a lot since 2014. And the Ukrainians are extremely physically brave people. And I've seen videos where former Green Berets are watching what the Ukrainians are doing, and they're saying, we would never be allowed to do stuff like this
Yeah.
because it would be considered too risky. It would be considered suicide
Well,
missions.
but part of the deal is the Ukrainians don't have a choice.
Exactly.
They don't want Stalin back. They don't want Russia in control. They know what it is to be under the Russian boot. And the
Exactly.
fuck if they're gonna go back there. They would much rather immolate the entire population fighting the invasion And that's why I always said the Russians cannot win. That doesn't mean that the Ukrainians can by themselves push the Russians all the way to Vladivostok, but it means that the Russians cannot fucking win.
Well,
Period. End of story.
the Ukrainians came to the conclusion that NATO are essentially unreliable allies.
Yeah.
And the U.S. has been delaying the F-6 delivery of the F-16.
The U.S. has been undermining Ukraine from before the invasion.
Right.
Biden's duplicity, Biden's talk about helping Ukraine on one hand and his action undermining Ukraine on the other
Yeah.
is, quite the example of a fucking hypocrite.
Well, what the Ukrainians have done is they've made a strategic shift. Everybody needs to keep in mind that Ukraine was the center of Soviet and Russian um, aircraft manufacturing. And the Ukrainians have created drones that can fly 800 miles, if not more.
More.
And
15 to 1800 miles clocked.
these drones are piloted up to a certain point, and then AI takes over and is able to put the drone through a window from 800, 900
from 1,000 miles away.
Right. And the Ukrainians are currently demolishing Russia's their oil reserves that are used for the military and their factories. So,
by the way, Don here from Delaware, but Biden put together NATO.
yeah, that's what he said. He said he created NATO. Let's see, just for fun.
Endless source of merriment.
Let's see. Hold on.
Because, if Trump is elected,
Okay,
he's going to destroy NATO. And we've taken great pains to put it together. Yeah, sure.
Let's see. He was born in 1942. He was born in 1942, so that means that Biden put together NATO when he was 7 years old.
Yes. A very precocious kid. He was in his coal miner father's home in Scranton, Pennsylvania. How the fuck he got to the mine, I still don't know, but it doesn't matter. Of course, his father wasn't a coal miner, but sometimes Biden puts on a wig and thinks he's Loretta Lynch.
Well, General George Marshall flew Biden in and had this 7-year-old address Europe.
Yes.
And Marshall said, "Listen to this genius child."
Yes. And the child said, because I was first in my class in law school and I got 3 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And then I came back and I reincarnated. It's unbelievable.
The only problem is that they had to take him out of the NATO meetings because he was nibbling on 2-year-old girls.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
and sniffing the hair of cats.
This is an amazing time we're living in, where the president can announce that as a 7-year-old he put together NATO. I don't know. It's just so bizarre. And okay, this is one of the dumbest, most irrational periods in our history. But you and I know that we've gone through some pretty insane. The Civil War was a pretty insane time in this country.
You think?
Yeah.
And President Edith Wilson?
yeah. There was that. There were we've had some really bizarre presidents. Was it Harrison who was in office for less than a month and then he died?
Yeah, that was Harrison.
His last words were,
holy shit.
No, his last words were, "The nourishment is palatable." How'd you like to have that on your tombstone? The nourishment is
It's
palatable.
palatable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm gonna have something else by tombstone, but you're gonna have to wait until I croak. Um,
I'll get there before you. I'm sure. We can meet at Rainbow
but
Bridge.
I shall not make a bet on this, my friend.
Well, it's
Just promise me, if it's me before you gotta pee on my grave.
uh, well. Are you going to be buried in Arlington?
No,
Okay, then I'll probably be able to manage it. I
yeah.
wouldn't want to be on anyone's grave in Arlington.
No,
Um,
no, 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 no. I'll be at the cemetery in Salem, Massachusetts.
oh,
That has already been taken care of on Linden Avenue.
oh, okay. I,
Linden Avenue is within inside the cemetery, the name of the street where the tomb is. What can I say? There's a it's a large building. I'm sure that you're going to be able to find a moment without guards where you can water the plants. There you go. You can always attribute it to the necessities of old age. There was
I,
this passenger who got up on a flight, pulled his pants down in the aisle, and started peeing. And of course, he was arrested on arrival. And he claimed that, he had some urinary issues.
that's
What do you
another.
think? Will he get away with this? I'm waiting to see. I'm betting he does.
Well, they never actually give these people heavy sentences. The federal sentencing for, I mean, some of these videos coming out of airlines right now are really emblematic of the time we're living in, where it's just like, what are you people doing? Like, are you even thinking? Is your brain been switched on? Like you're behaving like animals. And here's what I hate: they have to evacuate the entire plane just to remove one passenger. They need to change that, because I've seen more than one person say, if I have to get off, then everybody has to get off, and then they have to evacuate the plane. And common sense says you just get the passengers in the area directly around there. You get them to evacuate, and then you jump on this nutter and you beat them senseless, and then you haul them off the plane. And you know,
I think I told you once, and one of these days I'm gonna bring this guy uh, uh, with us just to confirm the story. But uh, I got this guy telling this story at a hotel near Fort Campbell, and he was, telling the story of what happened, and as I happened, I said, I was the guy you're talking about. And he looks at me and says, Saul, you son of a bitch. This is the first time I'd seen the guy in 40 years.
wow,
It was a flight from New York to San Juan. And as passengers were boarding, there was this guy who was drunk as a skunk. I already knew it was going to be drunk. And they all sit down, and apparently he recognized a former girlfriend with a new boyfriend a few seats ahead. So as we are taxiing to the head of the runway, he jumps on top of the seat, screaming, Puta! Puta! And it's like the entire plane is like, what the fuck? He wasn't happy with the girl, you see. So I tell him to sit down, and he sits down. And soon as we are already flying, the same thing ensues, and then he tries to get into the aisle. And starts, like to push and shove the boyfriend, at which time I go next to him and tell him, you need to go back to your seat, and he tried to clock me. And when he tried to clock me, I caught his arm, turned him around, and put his hand, it was his right hand, over his left shoulder, right through the back. It hurts. No shit, Sherlock. Now, I had my left hand around his neck. With my right hand, I was playing pull the arm, like the one arm bandit with him. And I kind of carried him into a galley as I was telling other flight attendants, get me some help. I put him on top of a counter in the galley, and he was still trying to free himself. And I'm telling him, if you keep moving, you're going to stay here. I'm not going to release you until I'm convinced that you're going to behave. It took a little while. So I released him eventually, and he tried to clock me again. The next thing, he's on the floor with my knee between his shoulders. And somebody handed me, in all the flights, we had extra seatbelts.
Mm-hmm.
Like for the real fat passengers that
Mm-hmm.
you needed to elongate the seatbelts. So I used the extra seatbelts to essentially tie him up like a fucking salami.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, the co-pilot comes up. What happened? And this is the guy that was telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell him what happened, and he said to me later, and explained that to me at Fort Campbell, that he didn't come sooner because somebody had pressed there is a sequence of rings
Mm-hmm.
that tell the cockpit there is an emergency in the back.
Mm-hmm.
When they hear that sequence, they have to enter into an emergency procedure.
Mm-hmm.
They don't leave the cockpit during that. So after everything was clarified and they figured out what was on and the procedure was done, he came out to find out what it was. We arrived, the flight was from San Juan to New York, not the other way around. We arrived at Kennedy Airport at the United Terminal. And the cops come in, they ask the passengers to remain seated. So the cops come in, take this guy. And then something weird happened. I'm talking 1984.
Mm-hmm.
All the passengers came out, they were waiting for their luggage, and suddenly this guy walks out free.
Mm-hmm.
They went berserk. They literally rioted on the terminal.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the newspapers the next day. I had to be taken out of the terminal hiding because these people were really, really pissed that
Mm-hmm.
this guy was not being jailed. By the way, this goes to show you that we've been stupid for longer than 40 years.
Oh yeah.
This is 40 years ago. Can you believe that?
I can't believe anything really because we have all the right parts in place, but we never use them. Like air marshals.
Yeah, they're not on every flight, to be fair.
I read today that Biden has assigned all the air marshals to the border.
Yeah.
To help process illegals.
We have a pitifully small number of air marshals. There is a sliver of a chance that you'll have an air marshal on board. And Biden just took somewhere around 80% of them and sent them to the border.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about being, well, no, what am I going to say? Biden's stupid. I hate to repeat myself. But these Democrats, either they're doing this shit on purpose, or they are stupider than the Swedish retard. By the way, I'm using vocabulary you boob doesn't like, so you boob. It's been grand. What can I tell you? But all things must come to an end, and so is our transmission in YouTube. If you are in YouTube, and I see that there are some people commenting there, uh, we don't answer commentary in YouTube. You can always come here to Odyssey, and in the description under the video in YouTube, you have the link. So I'll see you here, and if not, good night. And what the heck? What did I do wrong? Oh, I pressed continue in YouTube. No, I don't want to view this in YouTube. I want YouTube gone.